We have a variety of news today, including some significant injuries. We have some signings, including Ryan Hartman in Minnesota. Joe Thornton of the Leafs has been fined, and we also have an update on the Women's World Championships that were recently canceled. We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. First up, I want to start with the Women's World Championships. Now, of course, they were supposed to take place in Nova Scotia, Canada, not too long here into the future. Unfortunately, Nova Scotia has canceled the event. Essentially, it seems like they don't want to take the risk of any extra people coming into their province from around the world for this hockey tournament. Obviously, there was a lot of protocols put in place. Essentially, it looked like it was going to be pretty well close to an NHL-style bubble. I know the list of protocols were quite extensive, and I know the players are extremely upset and disappointed. Many of the players were supposed to start heading towards Nova Scotia. I believe it was like a day after the event was canceled. So certainly really short notice. There has been a spike in cases of COVID in the Halifax area in Nova Scotia, but still, I know it was really disappointing news, and I really don't see the need to do this myself, given all the safety protocols that were put in place. But I guess there's also some good news already. Even though it's only been a short time since the cancellation was announced, there's already several other cities within Canada that have stepped up to offer the host the tournament, as well as some other places in Europe as well, I believe. However, on short notice, they couldn't hold a tournament with the same timelines and the same time frame that they were supposed to have it. So it is still possible that the World Championships for the women will take place. We can't guarantee that yet, but I know there's several other communities within Canada. Like I said, I believe Ottawa was one of them. I think Abbotsford, BC was on the list, and a few others as well. And I think there was a few others in Europe, including Finland, and I can't remember where else it was. But there's several options that on the table, including many within Hockey Canada's jurisdiction here, that they could certainly look at to still be able to host a tournament in Canada like it was supposed to be. And if that works out, that it could potentially be held perhaps in August. So there's still some hope that we will see that. I know many of them have been training for a long time. They didn't get to have the tournament last year. The Olympics are not too far away, and it would be a major blow to the sport of women's hockey if this event can't take place. So hopefully one of those other places can come through and a tournament can still take place. I'd rather see it take place at a later scheduled time than have it completely canceled and shut down. So hopefully we'll find out more good news on that here in the coming days. Now, as I mentioned, we also have a bunch of injury updates. Anaheim Ducks winger Jacob Silfverberg is going to be out of action for a long period of time, about 4 to 6 months with a torn labrum. Apparently, this is something he's been dealing with for the better part of 2 seasons. It's something that started, I believe, not only this year, but last year. He's been trying to play through it, and given the fact that the Ducks are near the bottom of the standings, certainly not heading for the playoffs, it makes sense that he take off the last little bit of the season to get a head start on getting the surgery and getting the recovery process in order so that he can hopefully not miss time next year. But at this point, given where we're at in April, it's not an absolute guarantee he'll be ready for training camp, but at least his odds are much better. We've seen a few of his other teammates, including guys like Hampus Lindholm, have a similar surgery in the past couple of years. So it's a big surgery, something that's getting to be fairly commonplace in the NHL. Big recovery, and we wish him the best, and hopefully he can get back to playing a little bit better. I know his numbers have been down a bit, and it makes sense if he's been playing with that type of injury for an extended time. Now, the Detroit Red Wings have been battered up here with injuries. They've already lost Bobby Ryan for the season a while back. Larkin is out. It's not known for sure that he's going to be out for the season, but the coach, Jeff Blashill, did indicate that it could be. And now that we know for sure that Frans, Nielsen, and Tyler Bertuzzi are out for the season, and I know they have other injuries too, so they've been battered and beaten up, and they had a lot of guys that are gone for the year now. So it's certainly looking like a lot of other players getting an opportunity to play from the minors and stuff. So the Red Wings, I mean, obviously they're not battling for playoffs or anything, but still, it'd be nice to see these players finish their seasons. But like I said about Silfverberg and Anaheim, if you're that low in the standings and you know that the playoffs aren't happening and you have something that you've been dealing with for a while and you need surgery, why play through this final, 8, 10, 11, 12 games, whatever's left for your team? Why not get a head start on the surgery and the recovery process to make sure you're good to go for next year? And hopefully next year things will be back to normal when it comes to fans in the building and all that kind of stuff. I know we're slowly getting there with a lot of the U.S. markets, and hopefully by the fall we'll be there with Canada as well and kind of be back to semi-normalcy, which would certainly be very, very nice. Bad news in the Coyotes organization. They're going to be without Connor Garland for at least a couple of weeks after an injury there. I don't have the full details on the extent of the injury, but at this time, he's a big part of that team and a big part of the team's offense for a team that already struggles to score goals. Having him out is going to hurt. I mean, they are in a race with the St. Louis Blues for that last playoff spot. They currently hold down the spot, but the Blues have games in hand, and they've been playing quite well lately. So clearly the Coyotes have their work cut out for them, and having a guy like Garland out is going to be a major blow. So we'll see how they hang on here while he's out. They're going to have to rely upon defense and goaltending even more so than they normally already do. Now, another big injury update that we don't really know the full extent of, is more of an illness than an injury, but that's Jonathan Toews, captain of the Chicago Blackhawks. We still don't know what's going on with the Hawks captain, but Darren Dreger, TSN, was reporting here on a recent radio hit that there is reports that things are progressing in a positive manner for Toews, and that the hope is that he'll be able to recover and return for next season. So, of course, at this point, Jonathan Toews still has not really gone public with what's going on with himself. We just know it's some sort of illness. That's completely his right to keep that private. We don't really need to know. However, it's hard to say at some point if he'll change his mind and give more details or what have you there. But at least it's looking like it's progressing, which is the good news, in that his career can resume, which is a hope for next season. That would be a huge addition back for Chicago, who's actually, like I said, they've done okay considering what we were expecting this year. Going into the year with all the injuries they had, we knew Toews was going to be out. We knew Seabrook was going to be out. Kirby Dach got hurt at World Junior, so his season was, derailed big time before it ever got started. He came back sooner too. I thought maybe Dach might be out for the year, but he's been able to play recently, which is good. And they certainly had a lot of question marks in goal, and Kevin Lankinen came out of nowhere to kind of really take that spot and hold things down. So they've done better than many gave credit for. And even though they kind of gave up a playoff spot here recently to the Nashville Predators, it's still a feat, the fact that they've been in the conversation and be able to remain competitive as they have, in my opinion. I really didn't have a lot of hope the way things started out for them. I thought they'd be basement dwellers, and they've really surprised and played very well under the circumstances. So let's hope that Captain Serious Jonathan Toews can continue to recover and get back to playing hockey next season. Now, as I mentioned, we also had some interesting news on a fine. Toronto Maple Leafs forward Joe Thornton has received a fine from NHL Player Safety for interference in their last game against the Winnipeg Jets, where he had a interference call with Matthew Perreault of the Jets. Now, clearly, if you watch the replay, it is certainly interference. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the puck was long gone, but I'm really surprised that it ended up being a fine. I mean, I didn't think it was all that egregious. Yes, he was late, and clearly he probably should have avoided the hit. But you know what? It was interference, and that's all it is. I really don't see why a fine needs to be placed here, especially given the fact of how small these fines are. The fine's just a smidge over $3,000, which is the maximum allowed under the CBA for this type of infraction, which is, like I said before, it's kind of funny considering what these guys are paid. That's a small slap on the wrist, but either way, Player Safety felt the need to fine them. I don't think we can dispute at all that it is interference, but I am a tad bit surprised that they went as far as giving him a fine. But it is what it is, and we'll move on from there. Now, as I mentioned as well, we have some signings to kick things off with a re-signing and extension here of Ryan Hartman with the Minnesota Wild, who's been a decent fit there. Obviously, he started off his career for the first little while in Chicago and then kind of bounced around a little bit, but seems to have found himself a home in Minnesota. He gets a 3-year contract extension at $1.7 million. So I think he's fair to say he's having a decent year and can certainly be part of that team for a while. Seems to be a good fit there. Difficult to say if he'll be exposed or protected in the expansion draft. I'm guessing he very well could find himself available. The Minnesota Wild, as we've talked about in our recent expansion draft, mock draft that we did, they're going to have some interesting choices to make, and they could end up with a variety of players that become exposed depending on how they choose to protect their guys. But like guys like Matt Dumba, they have to decide what to do there. They got guys like Hartman and even guys like Marcus Foligno, for example. They're going to have some interesting players that might be intriguing to the Kraken. Even a guy like Cam Talbot, for example, if they want to protect the younger goaltender there in Kakinen, like they have some interesting choices to make. So we'll have to see what that means for Hartman, but at the end of the day, he gets himself a contract extension and a decent payday for what he brings to the table. The Dallas Stars have signed a 2018 third-round selection in Oscar Back, who's a center/right winger. He's been playing over in Sweden. He's got pretty good size, 6'3", 200 pounds, so he could be an interesting pickup here for Dallas. So we'll see what that means for him. I'm not sure where he'll end up playing next year. He could still remain in Sweden, could come over and play in North America. That information is not quite available here as of yet what the plan is, but still an interesting prospect here under contract for the Dallas Stars. We also have another signing here for the New York Rangers. They signed another Swedish prospect who was a second-round pick in 2019. That's Carl Hendrickson. Now, Hendrickson's certainly an undersized forward, especially for somebody who likes to play center. He's 5'9", 175 pounds, so I think it's fair to say he's likely going to need to add some muscle to really have some longevity at the NHL. I'm not sure what the plan will be for him, but I would think if he comes over to North America, can work with the Rangers training staff, spend some time in the American Hockey League, would probably be best for his development, obviously. So we'll see what happens for him heading into next year. And the Nashville Predators have also signed one of their prospects for the 2019 draft, fourth-round pick left shot defenseman Mark Delgado, who comes from UMass Amherst. So obviously that was a very successful college program where he played for 3 seasons. He's currently 21 years old and will likely start off with their AHL farm system. So that is all your news for today. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed down below in the comments so we can discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news from around the entire NHL. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.